Welcome to Machine Minds, where technology and humanity meet. I'm your host, Greg Terrusian, founder of Samson Rose, a recruiting and search business focused on the robotics and AI industries. The Machine Minds show is where we dive deep into the intricate world of robotics and artificial intelligence. As a staffing industry leader with a passion for the frontiers of technology, I'm pleased to be bringing you intimate conversations with the founders, investors, and trailblazers who are at the heart of the AI and robotics revolution. In each episode, we dig into their journeys, the applications of the products they're working on, and the breakthroughs that are shaping our future. Join us as we explore how these machine minds are transforming the way we live, work, and understand our world. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a tech enthusiast, or just curious about this amazing field, you'll learn something new with each episode. Let's delve into the extraordinary. Let's delve into machine minds. Hello and welcome to Machine Minds. I'm your host, Greg Terrusian, founder of Samson Rose, a robotics and AI-focused search firm. And on today's episode, we are joined by Steve Arters, VP of Marketing at Renu Robotics. Renu build and supply an all-electric autonomous vehicle for the solar industry to automate part of their operations and maintenance. Thanks for being here, Steve.
Hey, Greg. Great. Thanks for having me. Great to see you again.
Yeah, I'm glad we could do this. So let's jump into it. So usually, as listeners will know, and I know that you've heard some of these episodes, I like to hand it over to the guest first, find out a bit more about you for the listeners, and so we can tee this whole conversation up. So please tell us a bit about your background and how you actually got involved in the world of robotics.
Yeah. So I look at background and sometimes as previous lives. And so a previous life of mine was I was a media member, actually a writer and editor for the wire services, both the United Press International and the Associated Press, based in Dallas most of my career. And so when national figures or international figures would visit Dallas, I often was on the front line in the press corps covering them. And so it was a fabulous experience, but I wasn't going to stay in the wire service industry. Got into marketing in Dallas, ad agencies in particular, with large ad agencies in Dallas. For family reasons, later moved to San Antonio and been in ad agency or marketing pretty much ever since for, I would say, better part of 25, 30-year career. And so getting into robotics for Renu Robotics, which was a startup at the time, so got in right on the ground floor. We're first to market. So it was just a fabulous opportunity from a marketing and branding perspective. But because it needed all hands on deck and to be sort of a jack of all trades type of scenario from a position standpoint, all of that background has always been one of the blades that I could pull from the knife, whatever I needed. And so it's been it's been a great opportunity. And to get to robotics at this time in our history is really exciting. I mean, it's just every day it's kind of something new, and it's been a great journey up to this point.
I bet you that foundation, or anyone that I know anyway in the marketing world, that foundation of being in an agency and then going in-house, like really sets you up for success.
It's exactly right. And actually, amazingly, through all of it, this is the first time I've been on the client side.
Really?
And I tell the agency that I work with is that I always said if I went on the client side, I'd be a really good client. And so I asked them, hey, is that still true? But it's because of everything that we used to do in print and we used to do sort of in the analog space long before it was so digital. But a lot of those principles and practices translate really nicely into digital. So a long journey, but it's really been worth it.
Yeah, it is really that foundation, right?
Yeah.
It sets you up. I think it's similar, I'm in the recruiting world, but same thing when I was building internal teams, when I was part, the client side, as you call it.
bringing recruiters that have that agency experience in-house because they've got, the urgency, the resources, the mind for it. The same in the legal world as well. And I'd build legal teams, bringing
Right.
them from firms in-house and marketing. It's just like, it's so true, isn't it?
Yeah. And so one of the things that I always try to do, especially, so I mentioned first to market. So we're an all electric autonomous vehicle. And really for the vegetation management industry, that's cutting grass. But why that's so critical in the solar industry is you've got to keep the vegetation under the panels so there's no shading or anything else, because then it can
Right.
take an array out, all of that. So when you talk about autonomous vehicles, they think it's either security, which Renew is headed in that direction at some point. But right now, vegetation management is critical. And so they've the way that the industry has always handled it is through landscaping crews or large crews to be able to cut the grass, and there's reliability problems and rising
Hmm.
cost and damage and other things. So automation is the wave of the future, but once you get past the early adopters, you've got to prove concept every day that you're out there that this is the way of the future, and automation is the way to go. The solar industry as a whole certainly embraces automation. It's just like everything else. As long as it works and as long as it's doing its
Yeah.
job, you can see growth from it. So that's one of the things that I really always try to do in the branding and marketing is to continue to tell the story, is to show people how this is working and what the future looks like.
Love that. Yeah. And so your role as VP of marketing, in terms of your responsibilities and the objectives, is it mainly, I mean, I know you and we've got a long relationship now. So I know a lot of the work that you've done, but you've been involved in so many different areas, so many different initiatives and projects, and you're kind of like almost a one-man band building it
Yeah.
all. Yeah. So can you
Well,
tell us a bit about that?
yeah, absolutely. So when we're putting this together, I really wanted the marketing campaigns to do one job, but to do that, I wanted video to be a big part of this. Not that people were reading about it, but that they could see exactly how it works. So the annual performance video that I put together every year is really targeted at that. Is that in 3 minutes or less, a prospective customer could see exactly how this could work. So you mentioned from the very beginning. So actually, I was the one who wireframed and wrote the website, and then have always updated it. Of course, I work with the agency, on back end coding and all of that. But you go from marketing, branding. I run the 4 social media accounts. LinkedIn in particular is one that's been very successful for us from a potential customer perspective. And just try to tell the story of how we're progressing every year. And then more recently, I've gotten more and more involved in the daily sales prospect for working with current customers. And that has helped because whenever we do demos for prospective customers, I always want to be there. And Greg, I use it as a real time grassroots focus group of how did you hear about us? Did you see the website? Did you watch the latest video? Did it answer your questions? So I'm just trying to get exact feedback. And I'm telling you, some of the feedback I've gotten from the field is exactly what I change right away. If they didn't really get something or they wanted to see more of this, it's things that I use on a daily basis.
Yeah, you're hearing it right from the source. So
Yeah,
why would you not? Yeah, that's your
absolutely.
audience
Exactly right. Yeah,
for
exactly.
sure. And you've been involved in like rebranding, and I know you won an award. Was it the campaign won an award?
Yeah. So
Yeah,
just so to, I did, and thank you for bringing that up.
yeah,
So in 2023, early summer, won American Marketing Association Award, Marketing Excellence Award, and what was submitted were the two digital campaigns that I have kind of intertwined so they work in unison. And one is just a straight digital campaigns with the two largest solar industry publications. Most of it is digital, do run some print, but most of it is digital. And then the other is a digital platform that uses the IP addresses of a target list. We have about 100 of what we call tier one, or the top targets. And so whenever they search online, one of the Renu ads will pop up. So they click on it, it goes to a landing page, answers all of their questions, of course, in bullet form, has the video there and all of that. But if they want more information and click on any of the links, it seamlessly just goes right to the website. Then they fill out a form, a business inquiry form, which we call an incoming web submission. And that comes out the back end of the sales funnel, which then we turn over to the sales team and they pursue. So those two working in unison is what they submitted. And one of the reasons we've been doing it now for about 24 months. And so one of the things that I've seen over that period of time in the analytics is different companies will be clicking through, and I can watch that. Then you see the web activity increase, which presumably is the research period before the web submission comes in. So you can really track some of this of exactly how it's working and the target companies that are responding. And then I can watch for the ones that it's kind of a third, and a third, the top third, the middle third, and the bottom third. If the bottom third is not really interacting, then I will replace them with some new targets.
That's great. Yeah, you're really in the weeds with it. It must be, I mean, it must be beneficial because it's so targeted. You know, some companies out there, they're just like, hey, we send 10,000 emails a month or kind of target every single person, but you've got a very specific market.
After there's a major international solar conference called RE Plus, and in the about a 10-week period prior to RE Plus, during, and then after, we had about 25 utility scale leads come through, which are exactly sort of what we're looking for. Yeah. So that it's really gratifying, having spent so much time, so many years, you know, is it working? Is it not working? And then to be able to show exactly the targets that you're looking for, and here they are. It's exciting. I mean, it's gratifying.
I bet. Seeing it work, right before your eyes. Love that.
Don't have to guess, right?
Yeah, proof's in the pudding. Let's talk about Renu Robotics, their journey and vision. Can you give some more insight into the founding story and the company's evolution over the years?
Yeah, absolutely. So Tim Mattis is CEO and founder of Renu Robotics, and he was looking to get into sort of a manufacturing space and was looking at some different options, called around, found that in the solar industry, vegetation management is their number one expenditure, or one of their biggest headaches. So he quickly started working on what was basically the first generation of the Renu bot. And I'd known Tim for a long time. We've worked on a lot of projects, a couple of different companies together. And so he called me just months after it started and said, hey, you know, can you help me start to look about how we're going to maybe market this? So what I really started, because we didn't even have anything in the field yet. So I looked at where media coverage of this product that was being developed, how we could use that media coverage in the branding and show that, hey, this is coming, this is coming, this is coming. So, you know, almost sort of pre-stir the pot, if you will, even before the product was ready. And then once it was ready, we were able to find customers to be able to use it and get it out there. And it's just been building of that. And now we're into a third generation of the Renu bot, of the bot. And just a quick tutorial. So once it goes in its cycle, it goes back in its recharge pod to replenish the kind of the large lithium battery. Then it goes back out into a next cycle. And we have a unit called Mission Control that's based here in San Antonio, Texas at our headquarters. And it monitors and supervises and updates the software in the field for the bot.
Nice.
So that's the sort of the symbiotic relationship between the three units. So in the marketing and branding, I'm always telling the story about what the Renu bot, it has 4 cameras on it, RTK GPS, so it's accurate within a centimeter. But of those 4 cameras that are on the bot, one of the stories that I kind of like to show here is we'll have wildlife in the solar field. So you'll see deer or you'll see a bird land on it. So it's just sort of showing that, hey, this is what Mission Control sees when the bot is out in the field. So it's been we've gotten a lot of really good feedback on some of the social media stuff we've done.
That's very cool. Yeah. It's always the humanizing the technology and the product is always the biggest impact I find with these things that
exactly
are
right.
new.
When you talk about autonomous vehicles, right? It's giving it a persona. It's giving it, and so I coined the phrase Renu Crew, and that's sort of everybody who's involved in this. There's different parts, manufacturing or mission control or whatever. So, but we're all part of the Renu Crew, but then we have different segments too.
That's cool. And what inspired, I think you touched on it a little bit already, but what inspired Renu Robotics and the founding team to focus on this industry and this need?
It was the need. It was the need. There wasn't a automated autonomous answer. So it's the old adage about not developing just another product, but finding a niche so that the product will be quickly absorbed or adopted. And that was really the impetus to be able to start this.
That's great. And obviously the solar industry is there for sustainability, right? And being green and like to reduce waste, etc. So this technology kind of fits really well in there, it being all electric, but then also not burning gas, man hours, finances, stuff like that.
Exactly right. It saves the Renubot through the year, saves about 20,000 pounds of CO2 per year.
Wow.
So if you have multiple Renubots out there, think about the amount of CO2 you're saving in the environment. So that's exactly right. From a green renewable energy perspective, it's just all part of one story.
That's great. Talk to me a bit about efficiency. And this is more, I'm aware of some of this stuff, but more for the listeners that aren't. The scale of some of these solar farms, let's just use that for example, because I know you were talking about some other industries that you guys are looking at, like airfields and things like that. But how big are these operations and how does a product like this really enhance the efficiency?
So a small solar field is 100 acres. Think about that.
Really?
Think about that. Yeah. And so these can be.
I know I said I knew, but I guess I didn't know. I didn't realize that's a small
These can be 2,000 or 3,000 acres. Now, they may not all be contiguous. They may be in different sections, but they're in kind of the same area. But it's, in one word, massive is some of this. So as you can see, when you're talking about vegetation management, Greg, especially in spring and summer, in an area this size, you could cut for days and still not, right? It's still not affect some of it. So it's a big problem when you realize it. And it used to be, from people that I've known in the industry, the solar fields in the olden days weren't this size. They've grown and grown and grown and grown. And that's where this automated feature is, really so important now, because it is the wave of the future. It is how some of this is going to have to be taken care of. There's no doubt about that.
For sure. That's a lot bigger than I thought. Like I said, I thought I knew, but I clearly didn't. Any success stories or case studies come to mind from customers that have implemented your technology and it's made a significant impact?
Just that I hear almost daily that, where were you guys 5 or 6 years ago? Or, this is exactly what we've been looking for. And so, what I always, and then of course, my immediate next question was, so how did you find this? A lot of it is organic search, but a lot of it is someone will tell someone that they're looking at automating new developing solar facilities. And so this is just sort of the next wave of that. And then that they found us, or that they, and then of course it's gratifying when you hear, well, I saw you in, one of the industry magazines, or I was looking online and your ad popped up where you know exactly where, oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
That's great.
theory and practice. Hey, what do you know?
Yeah. That's awesome. What's the other way of people doing it? Obviously, you're automating it in these massive solar fields. Is the rest of it people actually just walking around and doing this
Well,
by hand?
there's landscape crews.
Yeah.
So they'll have 0-turn mowers. And so the landscape crew will be 10, 20 people, I guess, on mowers or whatever else. And so, but you can, certainly from a renewable or clean environment, that's gas or diesel is not, is certainly something that, I mean, they've done it that way for years, certainly understand that. But there is a cleaner way to do it now.
For sure. I think not only that, a common theme that comes up in this show, and when we talk about automation or especially autonomous vehicles, whether it's in ag tech or food tech, robotics as well, not just AVs, but is the labor shortage. So I can only imagine that having a 20-person crew is probably ideal if they can actually staff them. But the reality is that's difficult these days.
Well, that's right. And certainly in the Northeast, the cost is different than it is in the South or perhaps the Midwest. But you have reliability issues, getting a crew back out there. And then, as you know, in the cycle of the growing season, it may be growing faster than you anticipated. And so then you get into problems. Because as I say, you've got to keep this vegetation under the panels, or you're going to get shading, you're going to get problems. And that, a week or 2 weeks makes a big difference in that case.
I bet.
And then there is another consideration that's coming up more and more and more. We found that the insurance companies want this grass to be lower and lower and lower because of the fire hazards and other things. So that's another trend that we've seen maybe in the last 12 months that's growing all the time now, is why vegetation management is important for fire breaks.
I'm in California, and it's a huge issue, as you know, like wildfires and stuff out here, to the point a lot of the insurance companies are moving out of state or have moved out of state, home insurance, because of the fire risk. So I can only imagine in places like a solar farm where your goal is to have concentrated sunlight. And then if you're shading and drying out vegetation and just making it right for fires, it's got to be a big risk there.
It can be, yes.
Yeah, well, another reason to have these vegetation management systems, obviously.
Absolutely. And for Renu Robotics, kind of, you were asking about success stories earlier, and sort of as we've grown, right about the time that, we were lucky enough to win the AMA award for the marketing campaigns, we had just introduced a new logo. So the Renu logo has been very well received. And just recently, one of the industry publications, Solar Power World, named Renu as its 2023 winner for software and monitoring, which is, a great accolade for mission control and all of the great work that they do. But a bit of the tip of the glass to marketing for telling that story and really being able to show the importance of how mission control works. Because it's one thing to say that they supervise and that they oversee the bots and update the software of the bots, but what they do on a daily basis is amazing. So it's really our honor to be able to tell their story.
That's so great. Love that. Let's switch gears here and let's talk about the current state and future state of the robotics industry, and primarily around the spaces that you guys operate in, solar, maybe airfields, defense, etc. Are there any trends or developments or anything that you've seen in that space related to automation, robotics, AI?
Yes, there's no doubt. And I think, Greg, that is probably updated every day. But just for Renu Robotics and Vegetation Management, but we're being asked about things like security, or being able to modify it so that we could take, because it's got the central bot, and then it's got the modec that it pushes to be able to mow. But could that modec be interchanged with something else, like some sort of carrier or wagon or something that it could carry from point A to point B? So
Right.
there are a lot of things that we're being asked from an automation standpoint of what could next generation's bots look like, and those are on the drawing board now.
That's interesting. I guess once customer, because normally the first hurdle is people adopting the new technology, right? And we spoke a bit about this offline, right? That's normally the oh no, it's taking our jobs, or who's going to manage it, who's going to maintain it, things like that. But once they've actually brought it in, it opens their eyes to the benefits, and then they're probably looking at more things to automate.
That's exactly right. So you talk about taking jobs. Well, look at Renew Robotics. I mean, we went from zero to we're at 60 some employees now.
Yeah.
So you can see the new, and then we're just going to continue to grow. So you see the job growth or the job opportunity that it presents. And then I think when you have a unit of mission control, and the customer can see everything that the bot is doing through their customer portal, and I think that when they've become more comfortable with that, about how this new automated world is going to work, then I think that they see growth potential all around it and are comfortable with that.
Yeah, I bet. It's like you said, they're being comfortable and having their eyes open, and probably the mitigation of risk now. It's not completely new. They've already become accustomed to seeing it in their space, how to maintain it, manage it, and stuff like that. And you probably want
Right.
to offload more of what you do to the technology.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, we were talking offline about the automated, but when you bring in artificial intelligence, and so I have these discussions routinely with the agency about, because I always am developing messaging where we talk about autonomous or AI or all of that, but it's in a controlled sense. It's in
Mm,
that it's how it's helping you, how it's helping the customer, the end user. It's nothing to be afraid of or anything like that. It's this is the wave of the future. So let's
right.
harness it and let's figure out how to best use it.
Yeah, before you get left behind. That's the sad truth, isn't it? Technology, AI we've seen in the last 24 months explode, automation, and then the hiring landscape of actually filling jobs like this has become even more tough. So if you don't adopt this, your industry, business, revenue is going to suffer.
Well, you're exactly right. I mean,
Yeah,
look how fast it's being adopted, and we're talking about the robotics industry, but it's a spectrum of industries, right?
yeah, so true. Yeah, yeah. How do you? I guess that leads well into this. How do you see the competitive landscape evolving in the coming years? Or you guys, as you mentioned, were first to market. You've obviously got a foothold here, and adding more capabilities. Um, how do you see that evolving?
Well, we're I think we're being watched on exactly everything that we're doing. There's probably no doubt that there's going to be an expansion of this market at some point.
Mhm.
But it's sort of what those niche areas are, who wants to do what, because just as we said, we're now seeing how these bots can be used in other industries. I'm guessing that in a year or two, there'll be some new things that will come out from the drawing board of exactly how we might expand this. So
Yeah,
see really nothing but blue sky. How it may, how it exactly may all unfold, I think is probably something we're going to have to see in the future.
for sure. I think now that we're getting so far along, I say so far along, it's still early days, but further along in technology like this, it's kind of clear that it doesn't matter which vertical you're in, you can have a very successful business and own a corner of the market, as you guys are doing in something like
Yeah.
solar, because I'm aware, and obviously you're aware of like other autonomous mowers, for example, but some are residential. We've had on the show for, landscaping, some are for just golf courses. These are all very different environments and very different use cases and
That's
customer bases and things like that.
Yes, that's exactly right. And we get asked all the time about that for golf courses or residential. But
Yeah.
really what we developed this is an industrial machine that we
Mhm.
developed for the solar industry for that niche. And it's because of that accuracy of how it can go and exactly how it can geofence and cut inside what it's supposed to do. Those are some of the other markets that we'll probably get to at some point,
Right.
but it's we're built for a certain task right now,
Sure.
and just think about that in robotics. For when we say we're first to market, I mean, Greg, how many products are first to market in this day and age?
I know.
So
Yeah.
few, so
Yeah.
few. But it
Especially
shows,
that are still around after years.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it shows in robotics how this is sort of this landscape is just continuing to expand. AI, robotics, all of this. It's such a growth industry.
It really is. It really is. And now's the time. We're at that point in history where people have known it's coming. It's either been too expensive or people haven't been adopting it. And I think now it's all
Mhm.
happening, like say on a daily basis, there's new people popping up and things like that. Are there any, for your industry specifically, are there any like challenges or regulatory considerations that need to be addressed as things continue to advance? Have you seen any pushback?
Yeah, I think because I think we're learning that all the time on sort of what the challenges are. I know in our performance video, I have a line in there that says that Renew has taken lessons learned in the field and applied them into the latest version for continued success. That's in there for a reason, is to show how we're learning all the time. We've learned an immense amount, I can tell you, in just, we're just going into our sixth year, but the
Wow.
amount of learning that we've done in a short period of time is pretty amazing. In the as we go into other industries, there'll be more regulations and things like that, such as airports. How we start to deal with frequency and reliability and all of that is different. It's a different environment than a solar field.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there'll definitely be lessons learned going forward.
Sure. I'm sure. Okay, great. Well, you touched a bit on my next question, which was kind of get an insight on Renu Robotics' future plans and upcoming projects. And again, we've touched on it a few times here, but looking at new industries, airfields, defense, etc., and then also the new capabilities attaching carriers and stuff like that. Is there anything that you know is coming that you can confidentially on the show
Yeah, exactly.
tell us about?
Just between us.
Yeah,
So
just between us.
I think it's just it's probably industry niche such as security or transportation is all that I can really say,
Mm-hmm.
and it's how those are really going to be sort of revised and perfected on exactly what the task is needed, because I know airports have some different requests than the solar industry has. And as we expand into other industries, it's what those future requests are going to be. So the market, we always say the market will dictate some of that development. We certainly don't want to develop something that the market doesn't want. So
Yeah, not
that's
smart.
that will be market demand will be our North Star, certainly.
Sure. That's again a nice tee up to this question. But what advice would you give to individuals or companies any advice that companies that want to innovate and succeed in robotics, especially in industries like solar? Any advice that comes to mind that you'd like to share?
I think it's really gets back to storytelling and being able to tell your story to your target customer or client on exactly how your product best serves their needs. And it's not just a list of features or anything else. The old you can research on who said it, but when they talk about if you're selling a drill, sell the hole. It's the benefit. It's really the benefit that the brand shows, and I think or produces, and I think in robotics in particular, when you have such a mechanical scenario where people aren't necessarily sure of exactly how the machine works to begin with, or how that machine is better than this machine, is again getting back and kind of showing that and telling that and illustrating that.
Yeah.
In the brand.
Love that. Well, thank you. And I think we are at time. So I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show, Steve. I know we've been talking about this for a while, so I'm glad we finally got it on the calendar. I guess at this point, is there anywhere that the listeners can follow you or renew these updates that you've been sharing, where they can see these come to fruition?
Yes, absolutely. So our main website is renubot.com, renubot.com. And then we're on X, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is certainly from as we've talked a little bit in the past, Greg, of the four main social media platforms. LinkedIn seems to be the kind of the most white collar, if you will, from a professional following standpoint. And so we're Renu Robotics USA on social media. So find us there, and by all means, follow us and comment or repost or like, whatever. And help us continue to tell the story.
Thank you, Steve. That's great. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. LinkedIn is definitely the best one. White collar, B2B. You don't get as many trolls, people talking smack about your product.
I don't know. It's social media, man. You're gonna get some of that, but yeah.
Yeah, to be fair, I take that back. I have seen lately some very interesting things on LinkedIn, but I will leave it at that. Well, thanks again, Steve. This was great, and I look forward to keeping in touch and seeing all of the developments as they unfold.
Absolutely. Hey, Greg, thanks very much. I'm really glad we finally got it on the calendar to be able to talk. Thanks again.
Me too. Thanks, Steve.